If you had to sum up like your ethos as a chef in one sentence, how would you do that? How would you describe yourself as a chef?
I like to say passionate. Everything I do when it comes to this industry, and being from a little kid to now, cooking has just been a love and a passion that I do. I've been doing this for 29 years and can't see myself doing anything else but what I do today.
Hey there, Omaha. Welcome into another episode of Restaurant Hoppen. I'm your host, Dan Hoppen, and my guest tonight is a man who I really can't believe is in Omaha, to be completely honest. Over the next hour, you're going to hear about all the places that he has cooked, how he's traveled all over the world, how he's worked with and for celebrities, and yet Omaha is the place where he's chosen to lay down his roots. I can't wait to dig into that more. Let's meet and welcome the chef managing partner of Salted Edge and Pivot Prime here in Omaha, Chef Joel Hassanali.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And right off the bat, Chef, I'm going to allow you to make an introduction. You've brought a little gift here. What are you drinking there?
Brought a little Lucky 11 wine. This is our blended wine that we have. It's called a Warrior Lucky 11. For both of our restaurants, we actually go out to Napa and blend our own wines. And Lucky 11 is our wine. For both restaurants, you can get in either one.
Is this something, so people can come into the restaurant and get it? Can they buy bottles of it as well?
Buy a bottle. We don't sell it by the glass, only by the bottle.
Okay, fair enough.
And we have 2 years. We have the 2022 and 2023.
Okay, sweet. So I want to get into Chef Joel to start things off.
Okay.
You were born in Trinidad. Mm-hmm. You've cooked in France, Italy, New York, all over the world. You've cooked under celebrity chefs like Emeril Lagasse and Sherry Yard. You've been the chef for professional sports teams. You have this grand array of experiences and influences. I mean, just so many different backgrounds have now combined to make you the chef that you are. So I'm going to ask you an impossible question. This is a really good way to warm up a guest by asking them an impossible question. If you had to sum up like your ethos as a chef in one sentence, how would you do that? How would you describe yourself as a chef?
I like to say passionate. Everything I do when it comes to this industry, and being from a little kid to now, cooking has just been a love and a passion that I do. I've been doing this for 29 years and can't see myself doing anything else but what I do today.
What makes you passionate about it?
Just the food, to see the joy of the people's face, get a chance to be creative, get a chance to bring all of my knowledge onto the plate. Like I said, growing up, my mom and dad were both cooks. I always find myself in the kitchen cooking with them. In the Caribbean, we actually had a restaurant in the Caribbean. So after school, every day I would find myself in the restaurant sitting next to the chef and just observing. It's just a love that I had since I was a kid.
What is it about you mentioned seeing someone enjoy the food? What is that feeling like for you as a chef?
It's joy. So people come to a restaurant to celebrate so many different things, right? And it brings joy to people when they're eating a great meal. The fun, the laughter, seeing people laugh, the ows and the wows when they actually look at a plate before they even taste what's in it. It just brings joy to my heart knowing that all of the hard work, all of the hours that you put in, that you actually bring in a smile to someone's face. Okay,
so you've got 2 restaurants under the Lucky 11 label. You've got Salted Edge. Well, you've also got Sugared Ledge. We'll get to that later. Mm-hmm. But you've got Salted Edge. You've got Pivot Prime. If you had to pick one dish off of those 2 menus that you feel like sums you up as a chef, like this is me on a plate, what would you say?
So at Salted, I would say the Trini fish is a featured fish that we have on there. Has a lot of places I've traveled, but a lot of my background from the Caribbean on that dish. I would say if I'm in Salted Edge 5 nights a week, I'll probably have that dish at least 4 times.
Oh, shoot.
So it's a really good dish.
That's a strong endorsement.
Yeah, it's a really good dish. It's just so much burst of flavor. Not only that particular dish, we switch out the fish weekly.
Really?
Yeah. So the components of the dish stays, but the fish itself, we switch out the fish.
Based off just...
Based on what I can get in season, based on what we normally get some of our fishes from Hawaii, so it depends on, it might be snapper. We did it for the summertime, we did halibut because halibut was in season. Now we're doing mahi. We're looking into some snapper that we'll probably bring in. So we just switch it up.
Okay. And is there a dish that you would highlight at Pivot?
That's a tough one because we're so fairly new open. We just opened up, 4 months ago. But I would say the dish that sums me up, I really like the crudo. It's really light, refreshing, just such a clean dish. I would say that's my favorite dish on the menu. And it's an appetizer, it's not even an entree.
Gives me something else to order next time we come in. I think that's a good balance. You get a 1 pound Wagyu meatball, and then you get a nice light crudo to go along with it, and that way it does balance each other out perfectly. I want to hit a distinction here because there are a lot of chefs in Omaha, but you hold the title of chef partner. What's the difference there, and why is that such an important thing for you to not just be the executive chef, but your chef partner?
Well, part of ownership, right? So I have ownership in both of the restaurants. So, it's a big difference of just being a chef. Even being a chef when I was a chef growing up, it's taking that ownership of the restaurant. But now it's like, all right, I have a stake in this. Everything that I put in, it's me, in this restaurant. So just being the chef partner is kind of like I see from front to the back. So not only involved in the back of the house, which we call heart of house, I'm involved in the front as well, making all the decisions with drinks and, hiring and so much different things. So it's all in one. It's a lot on the shoulders.
What was that learning curve like for you? Because you mentioned you've been in this for 29 years, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Salted Edge was your first role as chef partner.
Yes.
And that opened 3 or 4 years ago?
We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary last week.
That's it. Dang. So, we're talking 27 years as chef, and then all of a sudden you get this extra huge responsibility tagged on. What was that learning curve like for you?
Well, I feel that it was a great opportunity, and I feel blessed to have that opportunity and to meet, Greg and Ashley Young, to have that opportunity. But coming from a chef to a chef partner, leading up to it for the last 27 years, I was building myself for this because as a chef, and most chefs, when you grow up, you always have the dream of owning your own restaurant. So it's, for that 27 years, it's just really just priming myself, getting all the knowledge I can from different chefs and different GMs and so forth that I've worked under, and just having all the knowledge. So when that opportunity comes, it's more of, it's the business sense. It's one of it is not only just, creating food, but now being a partner, it's like you have to see the whole aspect of the restaurant, because it's the business side now.
Is that a difficult switch, or not even switch, but a difficult adjustment to make? Because you've mentioned you got into this because you love food. You're passionate about food. You are passionate about seeing people happy when they eat what you create. And when you're a chef partner and you're not necessarily in the kitchen every day. You're not the one who's at the pass every day. You're not the one who's cooking every dish. You have other responsibilities as well. Was that a difficult transition for you to have to hand some of that stuff off?
Believe it or not, I'm still there every day. Both restaurants. I go to both restaurants every day.
Oh.
I start off in the morning at 1, go to 1 at night.
You
maybe
clone
after
yourself
that,
at midnight and then
I go to both. So I'm very heavily involved in both. I'm very heavily involved in the kitchen as well because that's where my love and passion is. But to answer your question, it's tough to pass it on. It's tough to be like, okay, it's all about trust, right? I have to have the right team around me and making sure I give them the tools that they need to be successful and pretty much pass the baton and trust them that they'll execute the recipes and so forth on a high level, training the staff and so forth. So it is tough, but up to now with 2 restaurants, I'm still heavily involved in both.
That's very impressive. So you've got 27 years of working in this industry. I cannot imagine how much time you spent thinking about, if I had my own place, this is what it would look like. This would be the service style. We would not do it like we're doing it at my restaurant right now. These are the dishes I would have on the menu. This would be, the type of service style we would have. So, I mean, so many ideas that you've garnered over the years. They're all in your head. And now with Salted Edge, as you get the chance to build that, you get to unleash that and what that looks like. How did you take all those years and years and years of ideas and planning and thinking and bring them into one cohesive vision?
Well, want to take discipline because, like you said, you have all these different ideas and you want to just throw it all in one, right? So it had to be like discipline and all right, what actually fits the concept? And when working with so many different restaurants and traveling a lot, it's kind of like, what is our vision we wanted for Salted Edge? And with that, we wanted that modern American restaurant. So it's bringing all of those things that I wanted in a restaurant in a sense of the decor, right? What does it look like? The ambience of the restaurant. Now, what did that kitchen look like? We had so many different ideas where closed kitchen, open kitchen. I love an open kitchen concept. I love the guests to come in, actually see what the staff is doing. I think a lot of people don't realize, especially in the restaurant, like what really goes on behind the scenes, right? And it's not, they don't need to know. They need to know they're coming in for a great experience. But I wanted to share that with everyone. So we wanted an open concept where they can actually see the cooks and see we have nothing to hide and see actually what the chefs really go through and the cooks go through. And then really laying out the menu, making sure, I mean, we cook tons of things and test it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you throw it out, you start over. But really trying to get the right fit for the concept. So we had pretty much the vision on what we wanted for Salted Edge, and we stuck with it. And I would say in between things, while the restaurant was being built and we're getting close to open, we had some challenges and some curveball where we should do this. This doesn't work, we should do that. How about this? And I still get it right now with Greg. I mean, he loves food, so he'll like, Chef, we should do this. And
we should have pizza, Chef.
My job is to be like, no, we're not, and here's the reason why. But saying no, it's always the tough part, but it's always, my job is always to make sure that we can execute on a high level, and it makes sense, right? You go to some restaurants and where it's kind of like, there's so many things going on, right? And just something just doesn't match where it needs to be. So it's really putting a lot of that thought process into it and what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk to you a little bit about the open kitchen because I think it's a fascinating concept. As a food nerd, I love it. I love going to a restaurant and being able to watch my food being cooked, to see things be assembled on the pass, to see the chef, call out tickets. Like, I could just sit there and not eat and watch that. My favorite single seat in Omaha is in a restaurant called the Boiler Room downtown, where you can actually sit above the open kitchen and look down into it. I could just sit there for hours and just watch. It's so much fun. And like you said, there are definitely advantages to having that as a restaurateur. You're able to pull back the curtain for guests. And you also get to see guests enjoying the food. Like, you get to see that response instead of being behind a wall. It also is difficult because you got to have a real buttoned up kitchen. You can't have people making mistakes. You can't, I think hopefully the Gordon Ramsays of the world are kind of a thing of the past where there's yelling and throwing of pans and all that stuff. I'm sure that still happens in some kitchens, but obviously you can't have anything like that if you've got an open kitchen. What are some of the challenges of having an open kitchen, and how do you ensure that you really button those things up so the customer is only seeing the best of what your restaurant has to offer?
Well, I think it starts off with, like I said before, when it comes to running a restaurant, having chefs, is getting the right people, but also training them. Training is such a huge part, right? So we spend a lot of time, effort, and money into training the staff to make sure once the doors are open and those curtains open up, we're it's showtime. Now, the real world is in the restaurant, everything is going to go perfect. There's days where things go wrong. There's things where, I do get upset, and, I have to behind my mind, all right, the guest is watching, but the staff know. They know that look that I would give or try to get their attention. I have a lot of staff work with me where I could just bend over and just bang, not too hard, but bang enough hey, let's go, right? But it is challenging, though. It's challenging at times, too. It's where you have to keep a clean and efficient restaurant because, like I said, the staff can see everything. The guests can see everything. So keeping it clean, making sure it's organized. It's like orchestra. The chef is just orchestrating his team, right? Making sure that it flows well. And even if a guest comes in and we're having a bad night or we're short-staffed or whatever the case may be, the guest shouldn't feel that. It's not there. We're there to make sure that they enjoy the experience. So it could be challenges at time, but it's our job to stay calm, stay control. If you stay calm, then the staff stay calm, right? So it's kind of like setting that energy. We're going to come in tonight. We'll have a great shift. Bring that energy. High energy gives you high results.
Mm-hmm. I want to get your thoughts on Omaha as a food city, because, I mean, I love this food scene. I'll talk about it all the time, and I've traveled a decent amount, but my experience slightly pales in comparison to yours. You've traveled and cooked all over the world in some of the most famous food locales. When you, like, if one of your friends in New York or Chicago or another city says, Joel, well, what is the food scene like in Omaha? How do you describe it to them?
So it's funny that you said that. I just came back from Austin a couple weeks ago. Went to San Diego, went to Austin back to back, went to some food shows and some restaurants and visited a lot of restaurants. Met some friends out there in Austin. And same thing they asked, like, Omaha, why? And I was like, you can't sleep on Omaha. There's some talented chefs out here that's doing some really, really great things. Omaha is just I call it the little big city. It's a little Chicago because the amount of chefs that we have out here that's so talented, great restaurants, just people don't have no idea. When they think Omaha, they think, cornfields, cattle. They don't realize that the chefs here are just so passionate and just so innovative. And we have some really, really cool restaurants. So I always tell them I have a couple of chef partners that's coming on here in a couple of weeks. And I was like, you guys need to come out, I'll take you guys out and show you what Omaha has to offer. Mm-hmm.
I think that people like you are so interesting because I think Omaha has a lot of really strong chefs that went to, Metro Community College, it has one of the strongest culinary, it's been awarded, it's known as a very strong culinary program. So Omaha has trained a lot of very strong chefs, and maybe they leave and then come back, but they generally come from here. You're one of the ones that came from the outside, where you kind of chose Omaha rather than you kind of grew up in Omaha and were like, well, this is my home, I'm going to stay here. We'll get into Crave and everything in your backstory, but just as you were kind of getting the opportunity to determine where you wanted to lay down your roots, what was it about Omaha that pulled you in?
Well, one, the opportunity.
Yes.
That's one. But two, I think it was a city that was an up-and-coming city when it comes to the food scene, and I think it was a chance for me to actually really showcase what I can do and bring something different to Omaha as well. Like you said, it's traveling all over, being from the Caribbean. I figure what I can bring and offer some things different, unique, and collaborate with other chefs, I think was an opportunity that I couldn't say no to. And so it's just an opportunity that I can think that myself and the hospitality group that we're trying to build helps us shine.
Okay. You have cooked for a number of celebrities in your career. Just to name a few, Michael Jordan, Oprah, Michael J. Fox. What is the most memorable interaction or experience that you've had with a celebrity in a restaurant? Or in an event. It doesn't have to be in a restaurant.
Well, yeah, so I would say Oprah was very interesting.
How so?
You just didn't expect that person. So I worked at Fisher Island in Florida, and she had her own condo there, and this was Christmas dinner, and she didn't want to come down to the restaurant. She had some family over, so the chef asked myself and two other servers to go into her apartment and cook for her. And just a warm welcome feeling, and just they were there drinking, interacting with us and stuff. It was just like different comparing to you hear celebrities, and like I would give you an example, like Michael Jordan is completely different. It's like, leave me the hell alone, That's just who he is, Even though he's a great basketball player, that's just who he is, So when I cooked for him, it was like, you come in, you cook, here you go, done. Now leave me alone, let me smoke my cigars and enjoy. That's just him. But with her, it was just different. It was just like, you a part of the family. You came in, made yourself feel at home. It was a really cool, I would say, a cool 5 hours that I spent, and it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously, when you cook for more celebrities over time, you get more comfortable. You understand, hey, these are just people. But I mean, I think that was pretty early in your career, relatively early in your career. And we're talking Oprah.
Yeah,
I mean, she's one of the most famous people in the world. Like, you don't need to say her last name. Everyone knows exactly who she is just when you say her first name. I mean, you're going into her apartment, cooking for her family. How did you set yourself up for that so you're not just like losing it the whole meal?
Well, I think she was the first celebrity I cooked for. I think before that was the baseball players, but just that alone, like, yeah, nerve-wracking. Like knowing that, all right, I can't screw this up, right? So the chefs that I work under made sure that we were well prepped, well prepared, had a game plan. But just going up there and cooking these dishes, it was just like, okay, I just deep breath, let's just get this done. The servers that I worked with, they have cooked a bunch of celebrities before, so they just help guide through because it is a nerve. You know, you're looking at Oprah and all of her friends and family, and it's like, all right, now I have to cook for you. I have to talk about this. You know, and I can't screw this up. But it was a good experience.
I really don't want to make these people sick. I never want to make people sick. I really don't want to make these people sick.
Not really. The sick part is like, all right, steak's got to be perfect temperature. You know, can't burn this. Got to make sure this is right. The plate needs to look good. So, but after a while, it's just like you're cooking again. You're doing what you love. So it's after the first couple 30 minutes when the flow starts going, you're just like, all right, I'm just doing my job. No, I'm just cooking. You know.
Getting back to the present, I find something fascinating about your two restaurants that serve steaks and pastas and a wonderful fish dish and ceviche, and yet I would argue probably the most, at least social media buzzworthy and maybe most well-known dish at each is a bread dish. At Salted Edge, you've got the breadboard, which has gone viral. It became famous. And now at Pivot Prime, there's this beef tallow candle that has just gone nuts. What is it about you and bread, man? You're not even like a baker, and your restaurants have become known for this.
Listen, I didn't realize when I just moved to Omaha, I didn't realize how much people love bread in Omaha. Didn't realize it. Like with the breadboard, it's just like, all right, we'll do a breadboard. And Ashley had some ideas like, we should do something with butters. And this, like, all right. So we'll do this breadboard. And I had no idea it would have gone off with a hit. So then when we did Pivot, someone asked me, like, Chef, how are you going to top off the breadboard at Pivot? And I was like, I have an idea. And it's like, it's not going to work. And I was like, it's going to work. I have an idea. So I wanted something different and unique. And I figure a candle. You have a steakhouse. It's dark, a nice lighted candle, but let's turn this candle where you can actually dip your bread in to eat. So we decided to do a beef tallow and a bone marrow candle and serve it with bread. And while it lits and it melts, you dip your bread in there, you get the rosemary, you get some roasted garlic, the balsamic, the salt, and people love it.
Yeah, so just so everyone understands, if you haven't had this dish or haven't seen it on social media, it's literally a candle of beef fat and bone marrow in the middle of a bowl with a wick in it. The wick is lit, so it just melts down, and then there's 3 or 4 different kinds of bread that you guys serve, and you just wipe it through that like it's melted butter. It's so stupidly sinful. It is like so delicious. Like you are asking for more bread so you can like get every ounce of that. I was very impressed when I had it. I have to admit, when I first saw it on the menu and I started seeing it pop up on social media, I was skeptical. I was like, I've seen restaurants do this in a way that's very gimmicky, where it's something that it stands out on social media, but then you go into the restaurant, it's kind of like, okay, why am I not just getting bread and butter? Why am I eating a candle?
Right.
But when I experienced it, I understood that. And, you kind of talk about it sets that steakhouse ambiance and everything. I agree with you. I think that you walked that line that made it make sense. As you're conceptualizing this dish and pulling it together, how do you ensure that it not only has, like, substance and it has a reason to be a candle versus it's just kind of this, hey, look we made a candle out of beef fat? Like, how did you make sure that it made sense as a dish?
Well, I think I've been working on that candle for probably about 3 months, trying to make sure I can get all the elements and flavors. And I would have everyone try it out, like, Chris, try this, or Greg, try this. What do you think? But I think it's really trying to find a balance, right? And like you said, it needs to make sense, because at times, people think it's a gimmick. Oh, candle, it's lit, But once you get into it, so I think it's just putting all of that effort into it and making sure there's layers of flavors. Like, because when I first started, it was literally just supposed to be a beef tallow candle. Had nothing to do with bone marrow. But then beef tallow, we tried it, was like, all right, it's boring, So then we tried tallow with butter. And it was like, it's still missing something. All right, what about bone marrow? Melt the bone marrow, infuse some garlic in there, pour it together, and then we're like, okay, we got something. So it's just all about, like I said, we just test things out and keep trying and make sure it makes sense, but make sure we're giving the guests the experience they're paying for. Making sure things are flavorful, well balanced. You're not just throwing something in a plate. And that's part of why I said this passion, right? We'll do it and do it until it makes sense, So after we did that, then we're like, all right, rosemary. It needs some of that rosemary there. And then we tried it again, we're like, finishing salt. And then the balsamic. Well, we tried it with regular balsamic. We were like, it's too weak. Maybe we should try a 10-year. Maybe we should try a 12-year. So just playing around until we like, okay, that's it. And here we are today.
That moment that you just described, that's it. I mean, and we're just talking about one dish, but you're talking about 3 months of R&D that have gone into this. I can't imagine how many versions that you tried of that dish, and now multiply that by 30, 40 items on the menu. Now, they're maybe not that all the menu items have that many iterations, right, and you don't try everything that many times, but still, that's a lot of that's it moments. How do you know that's it versus, hey, we could tweak one more thing, we could tweak one more thing, we could do this? How do you decide, no, this is the version that I want to serve?
You just know. It's just that tingling feeling. You try it, and just it's like, ooh, you get all of the flavors, all of the different notes. And not only that, I have a great team, so I'm not tasting this all by myself. It's like, Chris, come try this, or my GM, or whoever, and we all would try and be like, let's do a little bit of this, let's do a little bit of that. And we'll all be like, all right, that's it. Even at times we'll say that's it, and we're like, you sure? Should we? And it's like, no, chef, it's good. Don't screw it up. That's it. But it's not only myself. It's a team effort. I can't do all this by myself. I have so many different ideas and different layers and somewhat, but it takes a team. So I definitely get the team involved, and I got some good people on my side. So
I had you on the podcast a couple of years ago after Salted Edge opened. So this was probably maybe a year and a half ago. But one thing that you talked about is you are like constantly thinking about not only new dishes, but how to edit dishes and how to make dishes better. Like you even said, you'll be in the middle of a flight and all of a sudden like something will trigger in your mind, and all of a sudden you're like texting, your sous chefs being like, hey, what do you think about this? Where does that inspiration come from? Like, how is your brain just constantly processing things through the lens of food?
As chefs, we never sleep. We never signed off. We're always thinking about food, how things, how we can make things better. Like, especially you have a shift, right? You have this one shift. Let's say it's a bad shift. You don't sleep. You go home and you think, how can I make tomorrow better? What can we do? What went wrong? How can we fix this? And when it comes to the food itself, it's just while you're writing and you have ideas in your head and you're writing stuff down and you're like, ooh, that sounds good. We should do that. It's just all about, what do you want to put on a plate? What speaks to you? What speaks to the people? I like to say guests, but what speaks to the guests? But it's all about just like being innovative. Also, too, is like just threading that needle. Like, what can we do to push ourselves even more? Sometimes it may not make sense. Sometimes we'll put it on paper and we're like, in our head it makes sense, but all right, we'll see how it tastes like. But we'll just keep going and going. Prime example, last week, our lunch menu rolled out today. Today's our first day we open for lunch at Pivot. And everyone that works for me know that I edit things last minute. Like, literally, I would just like, yeah, no, that's not ready. We need to change that. So last week we were getting ready to print our menu, and I looked at it and I was like, we're missing a sandwich. We have 2 sandwiches. We need something else. And I was like, Lobster Club. And Sarah, our marketing person, she looked at me, and she's right here right now. She's like, really? I was like, yeah, just put it down. I was like, we'll be fine. I was like, this is what I wanted it. And didn't even test it out. And then that night went with Chris and like, let's make a Lobster Club. And he's like, really, chef? I was like, let's make a Lobster Club. And we just put it together and we tried to like, oh man, this is good. And yes, on the menu now, and today everyone loved it. And this was something that didn't even try. I knew the elements and the things we wanted to put together would work. So, all right, we're going to roll the dice. She's on my butt and saying, hey, we need to get menus printed, chef. Let's go. I was like, all right, just put it on there. We'll make it work. And so that's just sometimes how the mind works when it comes to chefs. It's like, you know it would work. You're confident enough. You know the flavors. You know the profile. You know what you want out of that. Might be some tweaks here and there. That's not on the description on the menu, and you make it work.
Now, I'm trying to think how I want to frame this question. You are a highly creative person who draws inspiration from so many different parts of your life. I imagine you're having a lot of those Lobster Club moments where all of a sudden something pops in your head and you're like, ooh, that would be great on the menu. But if you acted on every one of those impulses, your menu would be bigger than the Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah, no, we don't want that.
It would be a disaster.
We don't want that.
So how do you, I mean, I'm sure part of this is leaning on your team and giving them the space to push back and say, hey, chef, I don't know if we can execute on that, or have we thought about the price point on that, anything like that. But how do you edit yourself to know, yes, this Lobster Club is a great idea, and yes, it needs to go on the lunch menu, versus this Lobster Club idea, maybe we leave that one on the editing table for right now?
Well, definitely talking with my team. And sometimes they think I'm crazy. That guy right there at times, he thinks I'm crazy at times. He's like, we're not doing that, chef. And I was like, yes, we are. But I think it's a lot to do with, like I said, I have all these different ideas. You write them down. We discuss them. Some things may go on, some things may not. Or some things are like, you know what, next menu change, we'll come back to that. Because sometimes there's good ideas, but to your point is, not every idea you want to put on the menu. So we'll think it through, look at the menu, and make sure the menu is well balanced, right? Make sure it's well balanced and makes sense, and then we're like, all right, next menu rollout, we'll do this. Let's keep this in our back pocket. Or maybe we're like, you know what, let's run as a feature, chef. A lot of times they're like, chef, let's run as a feature, make sure we can execute it right. 9 out of 10 times, I'd say, yeah. Or sometimes I'd be like, nah, let's do it, So far, it's been working.
Is it possible for you to turn that chef brain off? Like, can you go to a restaurant or a movie or anything and just enjoy it for what it is? Or are you're constantly thinking?
Yeah, my friends and family hate going out to restaurants. they hate. I just came back from Wyoming and went out with friends, and they literally looked at me like, this is the reason why I don't go out with him. So it's just hard. San Diego, we took a bunch of managers, went out, and 7 of us, and none of the managers, even Greg, ordered anything. They looked at the server and they're like, he'll order for us. And I just ordered everything. Just can't cut off. Just can't.
Okay.
We've tried. We've tried to go places, like Chris and I would try to go places and just enjoy, or Tierra, and we just can't. It's like, oh, we could have done this better. Oh, how about if they did this? It makes sense, but it's missing this. You just can't shut off.
Fair enough.
So you can lose friends that way as chefs, though, because sometimes they just can't go out with you. It's like, all right, you're too much. We've tried.
So let's get into where that comes from. You mentioned that you grew up in Trinidad. Your parents owned a Caribbean restaurant. And I know that it was watching that chef that really made a huge impression on you early on. What was it about that individual and the way that they comported themselves that made you so interested in food?
Well, it's literally, like I said, after school, going there, just watching him just cook, watching his knife works. And he has this big cleaver and this big, huge log of a cutting board, and he's just chopping, and the flames and just everything. And just, he's tasting everything. and just doing everything to make sure it's perfect. And I would just sit there and just be like a sponge. Don't ask any questions at all. I would just sit there and just observe, just watch him. And I remember going back home and asking my mom, like, you know, telling her I wanted to just, growing up as a kid, to be honest, I wanted to be either a pilot or a fireman. Well, that went out the window. You know, here am I, 29 years later, a chef. But just watching him and just, like I said, just seeing his love and the passion for when he's cooking and so forth. And then see my parents do it too. That love just started there and never end.
Now, you moved to the United States and New York specifically at age 11. Mm-hmm. That is what many consider probably the food capital of America, if not one of the food capitals of the world. What did, even as you were still pretty young in middle school and high school, what did living there, what kind of impact did that have on your culinary journey?
A lot, because my family loved to eat out. So we would go to so many different restaurants, and just seeing the food, watching the presentation of it. Some restaurants open kitchens, so just sitting there and just observing and seeing the chef. It made a huge impact. Even after high school, my original plan wasn't to go to culinary school. I actually went to Hofstra University. And I think within, I want to say 5 months, I was done. I was like, this is not me. I wanted to go. My brother said, you don't want to be a chef. You need to do business. So I went and started, business. And like I said, within 5 months, I'm like, this is not what I wanted. I remember taking the Long Island Expressway from Long Island all the way to Manhattan and just went and registered a culinary school. Went back and told my mom, I'm done. I'm going to culinary school. Because I just know it's what I wanted to do. So it being in New York and just seeing the different food scenes, working in, pizza restaurants and, all these different places during high school, is just knowing that this is what I wanted to do.
From my experience, when I talk to chefs whose parents were also in the restaurant industry, there's two pretty distinct camps. There's either the parents who love that it's a family business and they love cooking so much they encourage their kids to become a part of the restaurant industry. And then there's the other parents who see how hard it is and how much they have to work and how small the margins are, how little money they make, and they tell their kids to run as far away from restaurants as they can, do anything else, don't do this. What was your parents' response? Specifically, you mentioned calling your mom. What was her response when you told her, I'm not doing this business thing, I'm going restaurant?
My parents are very supportive. So when I told my mom, she's like, if that's what you want to do, you love it, you might as well. Because, like I said, I'm always in the kitchen. So it just made sense to her that this is what you should do. Even being in the restaurant in Trinidad, we had different businesses. So my parents, to be honest, they were never really in a restaurant. They were in the other different businesses. So not like they were in the restaurant and seeing the day-to-day action. It's just like, all right, my dad wanted a restaurant, he built a restaurant, got a chef, and then the rest of it, he just did his thing. But with my mom, she really encouraged me and pushed me. Up to this day, we still talk about it. She said, you made the best decision going to culinary school and being a chef. So my brother now is doing the same thing. I know my brother always give me crap about being a chef, and now he's doing his own thing. He's a private chef in Florida.
Is he a pain in the butt to go out to eat with too?
Yeah, he can be. He can be.
So, interestingly enough, you're in New York. You mentioned you work at some pizza places and places around town. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe your first actual job in the restaurant industry was at McDonald's, right? Mm-hmm. Is there anything from that job and working in fast food that you gleaned that you feel like really helped you or you still draw upon today?
I think the structure in McDonald's really helped. Like, especially, in high school, and parents said, all right, you have to get a job. Well, I got this job with McDonald's, not because, one, I wanted to work there, but a couple of friends worked there, and this particular McDonald's, had a basketball team, a summer basketball team, and the GM for that store hated losing. So he was recruiting any athletes that he can in this McDonald's to make sure he won that league. And that's why I got the job. I didn't even interview. He knew I play basketball. You're hired, you know. And we won, but that was just his thing. He was just tired losing to the other McDonald's in the region. So he just grabbed a bunch of guys from John Adams High School that played basketball and be like, you're hired.
So wait, this was an all McDonald's basketball league? You just played other McDonald's all the time?
Yeah, every Saturday morning.
So the kitchen is just like full of like 6'6" guys and above. You're just running into each other all the time?
Yep, just athletes who can play basketball. We would practice Friday nights. And the schedule was beautiful because you'll get Friday nights off because you're like, we're going to go practice. And you get Saturday morning off because you have a game.
And those are two of the most hectic. Wow.
No problem. I'll do McDonald's.
Wow. Yeah, you nailed it.
But it helped, though. It definitely had structure. Just having you understand the business. You know, it's fast casual, but there's so much details on things that they do and they do well. So that was a good part of learning that when it comes to working there.
Speaking of athletics, one of your first jobs out of culinary school was being a part of the prep team for the Miami Dolphins and the Miami Marlins. How did you land that role?
So after culinary school, moved to Florida, and we actually purchased a home. And the neighbor, this guy, never forget his name, Shakura. He worked for the Dolphins and the Marlins. And I was like, I'm looking for a job. Just moved here. He's like, I got a job for you. So he took me there. I interviewed, and they realized I just finished culinary school. So I started a position in the prep kitchen. And I started there. I worked under Chef Scott Wagner, good friend of mine up to this day. And I think I was there for probably the first part of the baseball season, and the opportunity just landed where after that season was over, he offered me a shot to be the chef. He's like, I think you'll do well. He's like, we'll try it for the football season and see how it goes. And then the rest was history. I just, went in there, head down, nailed it, worked hard, and the result paid off. And then I became the chef, and I got to experience the 1997, I would say, Marlins World Series against the Cleveland Indians. Spent some time with the Dolphins, worked with some of the athletes as well. So I was a private chef. I did stuff for Gary Sheffield, Charles Johnson for the Marlins, Sam Madison for the Dolphins. So it was a good experience.
So I think when a lot of people hear the term chef, they think of somebody behind the pass in a kitchen at a restaurant. And obviously there are a lot of those, but there are all kinds of different chef jobs out there. There are chefs in hospitals. There are chefs at hotels. There are chefs for professional athletes. Can you pull back the curtain on what the ladder is like? Like, what are some of the responsibilities that you had and the skills that you had to learn in that job that were different from what you needed to learn for a kitchen?
I think the biggest thing is with athletes is what they digest, what they put in their body. So you have to work with a nutritionist, on what they can eat and how many proteins per day, and certain things. It's like, all right, shake in the morning, with breakfast and something light, and right before the game, they'll have a sandwich or something. So learning that aspect when a restaurant is like, you cook, people eat. Well, with this, you got to cook with discipline, right?
You can't be serving them beef tallow candles.
Can't do that, right? Or can't do a steak right before a baseball game or football game. So that was a challenging part, but also you're working with a team as well. So working with these athletes is just, like I said, their biggest meal is after the game. That's when they want to eat. That's when it's the fillets and, the ribeyes and all this, the pastas and stuff. But before the game, it's very structured on what they can have.
So is it kind of like before the game, it's like, all right, I got to make some healthy stuff for them that gets them ready. And then after the game, that's when I get to have my fun. I get to introduce all the butter and oil.
You can have fun, but before the game, it's a shake, a salad, make sure to have enough protein, the grains, and so forth. But after the game is where you can just, all right,
you can let
just
loose.
feed them.
Yeah. So I know that Emeril Lagasse was one of your childhood idols.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get a job at one of his restaurants at Universal Studios in Orlando?
Well, we moved to Orlando, and I just, like I said, always wanted to work for him. And I remember telling my mom, I'm going to go and apply. And I remember walking in and just filling out an application. I remember I filled out the application, and I remember the hostess, like, I gave her she didn't even want to speak to me when I gave her the application. She's like, well, sit there and he'll be right, somebody will be right with you. And I sat there for like a good 45 minutes, but they were busy, so I get it. Sat there, chef came out, and we sat down and just had a conversation. But also, too, I was so excited because it's Emeril Lagasse restaurant. So I think I was rambling off way too much on watching him when I was a kid and so forth. But at that point, I didn't care what they paid me. It was just, one, I wanted the experience, but just knowing that I can work for someone that I watch on TV, right, and idolize. So I started in the prep kitchen. I met Emeril twice. I got a chance to go to New Orleans and work there. That's when I met him the second time. But it was just a really, really cool experience. Like, you see in this person that you idolize, and he's there, and you're prepping, he comes up, he said hi to everyone. It was a really, really cool experience, and getting an opportunity to work for him. Very down-to-earth person.
So Guy Fieri from Diners, Drive-Ins, and he's on about half the Food Network shows now, but he was kind of the inspiration of why I do what I do. He's the one who got my love for local restaurants so inspired. I've probably spent weeks of my life watching Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. It's ridiculous. I would be embarrassed if I actually knew how much. But when he came, what was it? I think it's 2 years ago now. They filmed another round of Triple D in Omaha, and I got to be at one of the recordings. And at 1 second, I'm just eating pizza at a table, and then all of a sudden, he's sitting next to me, and I'm talking to him. And it was a surreal moment because it's one of those things where it's like I'd spent so much time watching him from hundreds of miles away that it almost seems like he just lives in my TV. And then no, he's actually here and he's 3D and we're having a conversation. What was that like for you with Emeril, where all of a sudden, and I was just talking to him for 2 minutes or whatever. I wasn't interviewing for a job, which is nerve-wracking enough. What was that like for you to have somebody that you'd spent so much time thinking about, and hey, look how he's crafted his career. I wonder how that could influence me. And all of a sudden, he's there in the flesh. What was that like?
With that, it was kind of like a dream come true, knowing that, like I said, watching him as a kid on TV, and now here he is showing me, hey, let's cut the fish this way, and here's the reason why. A lot of times, I remember the one time that he came into Universal Studios, we were filleting some snapper, and he's there trying to explain to me how to explain. I'm literally in a daze looking at him like, I can't believe he's right here. Like, he's telling me how to cut this fish. And I'll never forget that moment because, one, it was a learning opportunity, but one, it was kind of like that dream come true, like, holy crap, I'm standing side by side with this dude right now.
And then you corrected him, right? You were like, actually, chef, you cut the fish this way.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I was, growing up, working under these chefs, it's, yes, chef.
Yep.
Not like, well, I was doing, nope, yes, chef. So that's all I said. Shut up and say yes, chef, and tried it and kept going.
Okay, so in 2015, you came to Omaha, you opened a Crave restaurant here. You were here for a time. We kind of talked about how the city left an influence on you that would make you want to come back later, and we'll get to that. But I want to talk about Chef Sherry Yard at the same time, too, because she's another famous Food Network personality, very acclaimed pastry chef, and you described her in another article that I found in my research as a tough cookie. How did you end up working for her, and what was that experience like?
So after I left Omaha in 2015, it was 14 to 15, after I left Omaha, did some openings for them, moved to Maryland, and City Perch restaurant in Maryland was looking for a new chef. And my old chef from Ruth Chris was actually a regional there and contacted me and interviewed, did the tasting with her and got the position. So that's how I got that opportunity to work with her. But yes, she's a tough cookie. She is very intimidating. Don't let that smile and that pink chef coat fool you at all. She's intense. I think she's probably one of the most intense chefs I work for.
I mean, you can tell any stories you want to or not. Just how so?
I don't know if I want to tell stories, but I remember when I got this job. I'm meeting her for the first time. It's my first day on the shift. Haven't met her, and she flew in from California to meet me, and we just opened up the restaurant, and they were making this chicken dish. Now, once again, my first day. Haven't trained on the food or nothing. And the shift ended, and she's like, let's go sit down and have dinner. And we went and we sat down. And she just reamed me a new one because the shift was not good at all. And I am looking at this lady like, gotta be kidding me. I'm like, it's my first day. But her expectation is, you're a chef. I don't care. You know? And at first I had to sit back, and I'm that person who was like, all right, okay. Went home and had to like really like digest this and be like, do I really want to work for her? But then again, don't quit, suck it up. Went back in there the next day and took ownership. And that's all she wanted. She wanted like, you're the chef, we hire you for a reason. This is your restaurant, take the ownership. So I had to like really take a step back and understood that. And then just kept going. And her and I have a good relationship to this day, but we bumped heads, and just like any other chef, and she wants things her way, and I'm thinking, no, it should be this way, even though she's my boss. And yes, you say yes, chef, but just some things it's like, I am in this restaurant 15 hours a day, every day. You're flying in from California, it's popping in, popping out. You know, I'm sorry, but we went through some experience. But I learned a lot from her. She's great at what she does. Before even I met her, didn't like pastry. I was all a savory guy. And I must tip my hat to her because I learned a lot about pastry and baking working with her because she's the queen of pastry. She's very good. She has won 2 James Beard Award for a reason. You know, work under Wolfgang Puck for a reason. And so it was hard to digest and kind of like understand her and her expectation and standards. But when I did, we have a great relationship and learned a lot. Learned a lot from her. But like I said, she is tough.
So I know I don't want to like press fast forward on your career too much because I know there's a lot of other stops and starts we could hit and things that we could learn, but we're kind of getting up against time, and I want to make sure that we get you back to Omaha here. So how did you start a conversation with Greg and Ashley Young, who are here in Omaha, and they wanted to open a restaurant? How did they find you and present that opportunity to you?
Well, through a good friend of mine that we worked in the past, he actually told Greg. Greg actually hired him as the GM before the restaurant opened up, and he told Greg that you need to speak to Chef Joel. I remember meeting with Greg at is that 180 Tavern? 180.
Yeah, Tavern 180.
Tavern 180. We met there for lunch, and down to earth guy, and we met there and we just started chatting. You know, wanted to know about my career. Said he heard so much and tried to share the vision on what they wanted for Salted Edge. And wanted a chef, and you know, he's that guy that doesn't take no for an answer because I said no several times. I said I'm really happy where I'm at, but I started consulting for him for probably what I think maybe 6 weeks to 2 months. I consult and help build the restaurant and kind of just figure out the vision because Greg loves food, Ashley loves food. So when I met them the second time, I was like, all right, what is the vision for the restaurant? And it was everything, like a melting pot. We should do this. We should do this. I was like, all right, we need to figure out our identity. What is our identity? What do you really want? And I shared mine, what I think the restaurant should be after seeing the space and where it's at. And trust me enough. And he said, oh, okay. And even before that, like I said, I just kept saying no. I'll just consult and write the menu and create the restaurant. And then he said he wants to grow the hospitality group and offered me a position of being partner. And obviously, here am I today, which I feel very blessed and thankful for the opportunity, because just fun story that, you know, I got this opportunity and I've never cooked for Greg yet.
Really?
Never cooked for him. Like I said, I came highly recommended. He had my food, but I didn't physically cook for him. And I think when I did, I think he's like, okay, you know, we got something here. But it was more of that, just the connection we had when we met each other. When three of us met and just start talking, I start sharing what I think the vision should be for the restaurant and where I see it's going. They trust me enough and said, you're the restaurant guy, you know food, we trust you, and the rest is history.
Haven't looked back since.
Now we have 2 restaurants now.
So Salted Edge opens in 2023, and it opened to great buzz. People were very excited. I've had several fantastic meals there. It's a great restaurant. At what point does the idea start percolating? I don't know if it was in your mind, in Greg's mind, maybe everyone's mind. Steakhouse. That's our next.
So
step.
when I met him as well, around that time too, it was Salted Edge, because they already started with the name and they had everything picked out. But he always talked about we should do a steakhouse. So even, and knowing my background, so even though we're doing Salted, on the back burner in his mind, we need to get a steakhouse. And I remember, I think 6 months into 6 months into Salted Edge, called me and went up to his office and we were chatting. He's like, yeah, I just did something. I was like, and he's like, the old mahogany building, yeah, we're gonna do a steakhouse. And I was like, you know, it's like, all right, I'm in, let's do it. And we just went from there, and I shared what I think the steakhouse should be, and you know, what we try to do something different with the steakhouse, and we started to do just a French-inspired steakhouse, to do some unique things. But yeah, it's like he had that vision, and he's like, and not only that too, it's that building is very, very important to him. Him and Ashley, they went their first date there, and they did date night every Friday at that building. So it's kind of like when it happened, he's like, all right, yeah, we're doing a steakhouse. It's like, okay, great.
So you kind of just mentioned this in that answer, but obviously there are so many steakhouses around Omaha, some that have been around 60, 70 years that are just beloved, and you wanted to come in and do something a little bit different. One, how are you doing something different at Pivot Prime? And two, how do you kind of challenge what Omahans think of as a steakhouse and say, okay, yes, you've got your classic steakhouses, those are great. I'm doing something a little bit different. I want you to experience this too. Like, this is new, but it's not scary.
Right.
How do you, so A, what is different about Pivot Prime? And B, how do you entice people to want different?
Well, the first answer with Pivot Prime is bringing that French-influenced steakhouse. And it's kind of like that 2-point to that answer. It's, if you think about the restaurants, the steakhouse here in Omaha, they're the classic steakhouse, classic American steakhouse. So with that, wanted to bring something different and unique, something that we're not used to here in Omaha. And then with my background with having that French, classic French training, and then traveling a lot in different restaurants, just wanted to try something new, unique. Everything we try to do, always trying to be something different and unique. So why not just not a regular American classic restaurant? We have a lot of steakhouse here in Omaha. So let's bring something different and unique. And then to getting everyone pretty much to buy into that, it's our jobs as chefs and my servers and everyone that we train is to really educate the guests on what's different and what's unique about it, but also make it approachable, right? Prime example, we have a classic French dish, the Rossini, that has foie in it, so a foie gras butter, right? Some people look at it and be like, ooh, foie, I don't know what that is, or maybe it's intimidating to have, but it's our job, and our server's job, to really educate the guests on that. And I preach that a lot with my staff when they're like, well, chef, what if the guest does one? I was like, it's our job to actually challenge them to try something different, but also educate them. Some people are very intimidated on trying new things, but when they do and they actually understand the concept behind it, what we're trying to do, it's kind of like that wow factor. So that's what we try to do with Pivot right now. It's just, how can we, push the needle just a little bit more in doing things, but making sure it's still approachable to our guests, but also have it in a unique way. So it's a bunch of classic French dishes that we brought on a menu, but put a little modern twist in it and kind of put our own take on what it is.
Very nice. Okay, I like to close out these live podcasts with a couple quick hitters, kind of a rapid fire, if you will. So for these questions, think 10 seconds or less in your response. Favorite cuisine to cook?
Ooh, favorite cuisine to cook. I love Asian. I love Asian food.
Okay. Coming next to the Lucky 11th group, we're going to get an Asian-inspired restaurant. I would love that. I'd eat there every day. Favorite city you've cooked in?
Ooh, favorite city I've cooked in. This is a tough one. Chicago.
Okay. Celebrity you'd most like to cook for?
Celebrity I would most like to cook for? It's been a lot, but I would say Oprah. I'll do that again.
You do Oprah again. Okay, fair enough. Culinary trend you're most interested in?
Culinary trend I'm most interested in. Right now, the trend, sourdough right now, it's a big thing.
Sourdough?
It's a big thing right now.
Okay. And what bread appetizer is going to be the star of your next restaurant? That's kind of a joke.
That's a good one.
Unless you've got I'm sure you've got ideas percolating in your brain like we talked about earlier, but we'll let you
It all depends on what's the next cuisine, what's the next restaurant.
Well, it's going to be Asian. You just committed to it. You said it on the podcast.
Didn't really commit it.
I'm committing you because I want it now. So no, I kid. If you just stay with the two restaurants, that you've got two fantastic ones already. I would recommend either Pivot Prime or Salted Edge to anybody, not only in this room right now, but anyone who's listening or watching. They are great restaurants. Thank you so much for coming and investing time in this city and planting yourself here, leaving a job that you liked to come take a chance on Omaha. We're a better city, a better culinary destination because of you and what you've done. And thank you for just coming and taking some time and spending some time on the podcast tonight.
Yeah,
I really appreciate you, Chef Joel.
Thank you. It was awesome. It was awesome to be here. So thank you. Thank you, guys.
Omaha, as always, thanks for eating with us.